Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elisa Marie Designs. This is the last installment to the section that I am diamond painting here. Vision of the Past by Ivan Valakovic. And this is chapter 10. We left off with Philip and Rachel coming back from their ride and him. Oh, no. Oh, no, they're sitting in her boudoir. Right, they're sitting in her boudoir, and she's sitting with her embroidery, and he tells her that he went to her villa in Florence, and she is, the way that he described it, her eyes were there, that there was no hint of that laughter behind the eyes, and that there were no tears in her eyes. It's like one or the other. She's a little misty sometimes, and other times he doesn't know if she's like laughing behind the gestures in her face when she's talking to him. And he said that the way that she looked, her eyes seemed to be filled with compassion and reproach, which is such an odd combination, because reproach is to be disapproving. And the uncle, when Philip told him, no, tell her that I am just returning from Florence, and tell her that I went to her villa and I saw where Ambrose was, he didn't tell her any of that. So she's been in the house now for what, a couple of days maybe, and she has no idea that he's been to the villa. So this is where we're picking up at. Let me get to chapter 10. And here we go. My cousin Rachel. You went to Florence, she said. When? How long ago? I've been home a little under 3 weeks, I said. I went there and returned through France. I spent one night in Florence only, the night of the 15th of August. The 15th of August. I heard the new inflection in her voice. I saw her eyes flash back in memory. But I had only left for Genoa the day before. It is impossible. It is both possible and true, I said. It happened. The embroidery had fallen from her hands, and that strange look, almost of apprehension, came back into her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? She said. Why have you let me stay here in the house 24 hours and never breathed a word of it? Last night you should have told me. Last night. I thought you knew, I said. I had asked my godfather to write it in his letter. Anyway, there it is. You know now. Some coward streak in me hoped that we could let the matter rest, that she would pick up the embroidery once again, but it was not meant to be. You went to the villa, she said, as though talking to herself. Giuseppe must have let you in. He would open the gates and see you standing there, and he would think. She broke off. A cloud came over her eyes. She looked away from me to the fire. I want you to tell me what happened, Philip. I put my hand in my pocket. I felt the letters there. I had not heard from Ambrose in a long while, I said, not since Easter or perhaps Whitsun. I don't recall the date, but I have all his letters upstairs. I grew worried. And the weeks went by. Then, in July, the letter came, only a page. Unlike himself, a sort of scrawl. I showed it to my godfather, Nick Kendall, and he agreed that I should start at once for Florence, which I did within a day or two. As I left, another letter came, a few sentences only. I have both these letters in my pocket now. Do you want to see them? She did not answer immediately. She had turned her back from the fire and was looking at me once again. There was something of compulsion in those eyes, neither forceful nor commanding, but strangely deep, strangely tender, as if she had the power to read and understand my reluctance to continue, knowing the reason for it, and so urged me on. Not just yet, she said. Afterwards. I shifted my gaze from her eyes down to her hands. They were clasped in front of her, small and very thin. It was easier to speak somehow if I did not look directly at her, but at her hands. I arrived in Florence, I said. I hired a carrozza and drove to your villa. The servant, the woman, opened the gate, and I asked for Ambrose. She seemed frightened and called to her husband. He came and then told me Ambrose was dead and you had gone away. He showed me the villa. I saw the room where he had died. Just before I left, the woman opened a chest and gave me Ambrose's hat. It was the only thing you had forgotten to take with you. I paused and went on looking at the hands. The right fingers were touching the ring on the left hand. I watched them tighten upon it. Go on, she said. I went down into Florence, I said. The servant had given me the address of Signor Rinaldi. I went and called upon him. He looked startled at the sight of me, but soon recovered. He gave me the particulars of Ambrose's illness and death, also a note to the guardian at the Protestant cemetery should I care to visit the grave, which I did not. I inquired of your whereabouts, but he professed not to know. That was all. The following day, I started back on my journey home. There was another pause. The fingers relaxed their hold upon the ring. Can I see the letters? She said. I took them from my pocket and gave them to her. I looked back again at the fire, and I heard the crinkle of the paper as she opened the letters. There was a long silence. Then she said, Only these two? Only those two, I answered. Nothing after Easter or Whitsun, did you say, until these came? No, nothing. She must have been reading them over and over, learning the words by heart as I had done. At last she gave them back to me. How you have hated me, she said slowly. I looked up, startled, and it seemed to me, as we stared at one another, that she knew now all my fantasies, my dreams, that she saw one by one the faces of the woman I had conjured all those months. Denial was no use. Protestation absurd. The barriers were down. It was a queer feeling, as though I sat naked in my chair. Yes, I said. It was easier once said. Perhaps I thought to myself, this is how a Catholic feels in a confessional. This is what is meant to be purged. A burden lifted, emptiness instead. Why did you ask me here, she said. To accuse you. Accuse me of what? I am not sure. Perhaps of breaking his heart, which would be murder, wouldn't it? And then? I had not planned so far. I wanted, more than anything in the world, to make you suffer, to watch you suffer. Then, I suppose, to let you go. That was generous, more generous than I should deserve. Still, you have been successful. You have got what you wanted. Go on watching me until you've had your fill. Something was happening to the eyes that looked at me. The face was very white and still. That did not change. Had I ground the face to powder with my heel, the eyes would have remained, with the tears that never ran down upon the cheeks and never fell. I rose from my chair and walked across the room. It's no use, I said. Ambrose always told me I would make a rotten soldier. I can't shoot in cold blood. Please go upstairs or anywhere but here. My mother died before I can remember, and I have never seen a woman cry. I opened the door for her, but she went on sitting there by the fire. She did not move. "Cousin Rachel, go upstairs," I said. I don't know how my voice sounded, whether it was harsh or loud, but old Don, lying on the floor, lifted his head and looked up at me, fixing me in his old wise doggy fashion, and then stretching himself and yawning, went and laid his head on her feet beside the fire. Then she moved. She put down her hand and touched his head. I shut the door and came back to the hearth. I took the 2 letters and threw them in the fire. "That's no use either," she said, "when we both of us remember what he said." "I can't forget," I said, "if you will too. There's something clean about a fire. Nothing remains. Ashes don't count." "If you were a little older," she said, "or your life had been different, if you were anyone but yourself and had not loved him quite so much, I could talk to you about those letters and about Ambrose. I won't, though. I would rather you condemn me. It makes it easier in the long run for both of us. If you will let me stay until Monday, I will go away after that, and you need never think about me again. Although you did not intend it to be so, last night and today were deeply happy. Bless you, Philip." I stirred the fire with my foot, and the embers fell. "I don't condemn you," I said. "Nothing has worked out as I thought or planned. I can't go on hating a woman who doesn't exist. But I do exist. You are not the woman I hated. There's no more to it than that." She went on stroking Don's head, and now he lifted it and leaned it against her knee. "This woman," she said, "that you pictured in your mind, did she take shape when you read the letters or before?" I thought for a moment. Then I let it all come with a rush of words. Why hold back anything to rot? "Before," I said slowly. "In a sense, I was relieved when the letters came. They gave me a reason for hating you. Up till then, there was nothing I could go upon, and I was ashamed." "Why were you ashamed?" "Because I believe there is nothing so self-destroying and no emotion quite so despicable as jealousy." "You were jealous?" "Yes, I can say it now, oddly enough. Right from the start, when he wrote and told me he was married. Perhaps even before there may have been a sort of shadow, I don't know. Everyone expected me to be as delighted as they were themselves, and it wasn't possible. It must sound highly emotional and absurd to you that I should have been jealous, like a spoiled child. Perhaps that's what I was and am. The trouble is that I have never known anyone or loved anyone in the world but Ambrose." Now I was thinking aloud, not caring what she thought of me. I was putting things into words I had not acknowledged to myself before. "Was not that his trouble too?" she said. "How do you mean?" She took her hand off Don's head and, cupping her chin in her hands, her elbows on her knee, she stared into the fire. "You are only 24, Philip," she said. "You have all your life before you, many years probably of happiness, married no doubt, with a wife you love and children of your own. Your love for Ambrose will never grow less, but it will slip back into a place where it belongs. The love of any son for any father. It was not so for him. Marriage came too late." I knelt on one knee before the fire and lit my pipe. I did not think to ask permission. I knew she did not mind. "Why too late?" I asked. "He was 43, she said, "when he came out to Florence just 2 years ago, and I saw him for the first time. You know how he looked, how he spoke, his ways, his smile. It was your life since babyhood. But you would not know the effect it had upon a woman whose life had not been happy, who had known men very different." I said nothing, but I think I understood. "I don't know why he turned to me, but he did," she said. "Those things can never be explained. They happen. Why this man should love that woman, what queer chemical mix-up in our blood draws us to one another, who can tell? To me, lonely, anxious, and a survivor of too many emotional shipwrecks, he came almost as a savior, as an answer to a prayer. To be strong as he was and tender too, lacking all personal conceit, I had not met with that. It was a revelation. I know what he was to me, but I to him. She paused and, drawing her brows together, frowned into the fire. Once again, her fingers played with the ring of her left hand. He was like someone sleeping who woke suddenly and found the world, she said. All the beauty of it, and the sadness too, the hunger and the thirst. Everything he had never thought about or known was there before him, and magnified themselves into one person who, by chance or fate, call it what you will, happened to be me. Rinaldi, whom he detested, by the way, as you probably did too, told me once that Ambrose had woken to me just as some men wake to religion. He became obsessed in the same fashion. But a man who gets religion can go into a monastery and pray all day before Our Lady on the altar. She is made of plaster anyway, and does not change. Women are not so, Philip. Their moods vary with the days and nights, sometimes even with the hours, just as a man's can. We are human. That is our failing. I did not understand what she meant about religion. I could only think of old Isaiah down at St. Blazey, who turned Methodist and went about bareheaded preaching in the lanes. He called upon Jehovah and said he and all of us were miserable sinners in the eyes of the Lord, and we must go knocking at the gates of a new Jerusalem. I did not see how this state of things applied to Ambrose. Catholics were different, of course. She must mean that Ambrose had thought of her like a graven image in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not bow down to them nor worship them. You mean, I said, that he expected too much of you? He put you on a sort of pedestal? No, she said. I would have welcomed a pedestal. After my rough life, a halo can be a lovely thing, providing you can take it off now and again and become human. What then? She sighed and her hands dropped to her side. She suddenly looked very tired. She leaned back in her chair and, resting her head against the cushion, closed her eyes. Finding religion does not always improve a person, she said. Waking to the world did not help Ambrose. His nature changed. Her voice sounded tired, too, and oddly flat. Perhaps if I had been speaking in the confessional, so had she. She lay back in the chair, pressing her eyes with the palms of her hands. Change, I said. How did his nature change? I felt a queer sort of shock in my heart, like the shock that comes to you as a child when you suddenly learn of death, or of evil, or of cruelty. The doctors told me later that it was his illness, that he could not help himself, that qualities lying dormant all his life came to the surface at long last, through pain and fear. But I shall never be sure, never be certain that it need have happened. Something in me brought out those qualities. Finding me was ecstasy to him for one brief moment, and then catastrophe. You were right to hate me. If he had not come to Italy, he would have been living here with you now. He would not have died. I felt ashamed, embarrassed. I did not know what to say. He might have become ill just the same, I said, as though to help her. Then I would have borne the brunt of it, not you. She took her hands away from her face and, without moving, looked across at me and smiled. He loved you so much, she said. You might have been his son. He was so proud of you. Always, my Philip would do this, my boy would do that. Why, Philip, if you have been jealous of me these 18 months, I think we are quits. Heaven knows I could have done with less of you at times. I looked back at her and slowly smiled. Did you make pictures too? I asked her. I never stopped, she said. That spoiled boy, I told myself, always writing letters to him, which I may say he would read extracts from but never show. That boy who has no faults but all virtues. That boy who understands him when I fail. That boy who holds 3/4 of his heart and all the best of him, while I hold 1/3 and all the worst. Oh, Philip. She broke off and smiled at me again. Good God, she said, you talk of jealousy. A man's jealousy is like a child's, fitful and foolish without depth. A woman's jealousy is adult, which is very different. Then she put back the cushion from behind her head and patted it. She straightened her gown and sat upright in her chair. I would say that for this night I have talked to you enough, she said. She bent forward and picked up the piece of embroidery that had fallen on the floor. I'm not tired, I said. I could go on longer, much longer. That is to say, not speaking perhaps myself, but listening to you. We still have tomorrow, she said. Why only tomorrow? Because I go on Monday. I came for the weekend only. Your godfather, Nick Kendall, has invited me to Pelham. It seemed to me absurd and altogether pointless that she should shift her quarters quite so soon. There's no need to go there, I said, when you have only just arrived. You have plenty of time to visit Pelham. You have not seen the half of this yet. I don't know what the servants would think, or the people on the estate. They would be deeply offended. Would they? She asked. Besides, I said, there is a carrier coming from Plymouth with all the plants and cuttings. You have to discuss it with Tamlin, and there are Ambrose's things to go through and sort. I thought you could do that by yourself, she said. Why? I said, when we could do it both of us together. I stood up from my chair and stretched my arms above my head. I kicked Don with my foot. Wake up, I said. It's time you stopped that snoring and went out with the others to the kennels. He stirred himself and grunted. Lazy old devil, I said. I glanced down at her, and she was looking up at me with such a strange expression in her eyes, almost as though she saw right through me into someone else. What is it? I asked. Nothing. Nothing at all. Can you find me a candle, Philip, and light me up to bed? Very well, I said. I'll take Don to his kennel afterwards. The candlesticks were waiting on the table by the door. She took hers, and I lighted the candle for her. It was dark in the hall, but above, on the landing, Seacombe had left a light to the further corridor. That will do, she said. I can find my way alone. She stood a moment on one step of the staircase, her face in the shadow. One hand held the candlestick, the other held her dress. You don't hate me any more? She asked. No, I said. I told you it was not you. It was another woman. Are you sure it was another woman? Quite sure. Good night, then, and sleep well. She turned to go, but I put my hand on her arm and held her back. Wait. It's my turn to ask you a question. What is it, Philip? Are you still jealous of me? Or was that also some other man and never me at all? She laughed and gave me her hand, and because she stood above me on the stairs, there seemed a new sort of grace about her that I had not realized before. Her eyes looked large in the flickering candlelight. That horrid boy, so spoiled and prim, she said. Why, he went yesterday, as soon as you walked into Aunt Phoebe's boudoir. Suddenly she bent and kissed my cheek. The first you have ever had, she said, and if you don't like it, you can pretend I did not give it to you, but that it came from the other woman. She walked up the stairs away from me, and the light of the candle threw a shadow, dark and distant, on the wall. Chapter. Okay, first impression of this chapter, because it is very powerful and unsettling, and I needed to pause on it for a second and have a sip of coffee. So before we package it, let me say this plainly. That moment with the kiss is not innocent. It is layered with power. She is older than him. There is emotional vulnerability and control. And Philip is grieving. He's inexperienced. And he is already psychologically tangled with her. And I think she knows it. And in my opinion, that doesn't make her purely villainous, but it does make her dangerous in a quiet way. And that feeling of being unsettled is exactly what Maurier wants. That is how she writes. She is the mistress, let me borrow that word, of creating tension in her writing. Yes, I found this chapter to be very complicated. And the way that it ended, did you notice that we did not get a reaction from Philip? It just ended with her saying, you're first. And if you don't want to think of it as coming from me, you can think of it coming from any of the other women who were vile. All those other women in his mind were vile. But in this chapter, for the first time, Philip and Rachel are speaking openly. There is a truth between them, but is there really? Just because they're speaking openly. I think he is speaking openly. I don't know what to make of what she was saying, of how Ambrose did he put you on a pedestal? Well, no, not exactly a pedestal. That would have been great. A halo would have been great, as long as I could take it off every now and again. I don't know that we got that from the letters of Ambrose. He didn't seem like he was walking on air that he met. I think he was just happy that he met a woman who was English and Italian and had family, and that you could have looked at her family tree, and he wanted Philip and her to get to know one another, and don't worry, she's not going to take your place. I don't know what to make of that story that she told Philip. So they are speaking openly. I believe that he was speaking honesty, and there's even a kind of understanding. But what are you understanding? What is he understanding? She's just gobbling this up with a spoon, because she knows that he's young, he's grieving, he's uneducated with women. That moment where he told her, please leave. My mother died before I can remember, and I've never seen a woman cry. Oh, she's gobbling that up. Oh, but for a moment, it feels like something could be resolved, but that doesn't linger with me. It doesn't sit with me like maybe everything that has been building between them could finally settle. And that's because of the moment at the end. I have to be honest, it didn't feel the way I expected it to. It was unsettling because she stole something from him. Everyone remembers their first kiss. Philip is so young and he's still grieving, still trying to understand what is real and what is not. And Rachel knows more than he does in all those areas. She understands the moment, the emotion, and the power of it. And that was where I really started to question things, the whole conversation between the two of them, even if you fell for it a little bit with the palms over the eyes and the head back, and remembering how exhausting it was that, he loved her so much and then it just turned to a catastrophe. I started to question not just who she is, but what she is doing. Because that moment, whether it was meant, I don't believe for a minute it was meant kindly to just, I don't think that there was so much honesty and understanding between them that she would have leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. That changed something. And I don't think Philip realizes how much. That last sentence, that last line of the kiss, that's lingering with me. Not because of what was said, because I thought that was vile too. If you don't want to think of your first kiss as coming from me, then you can think of it coming from the other women. And we have no reaction from Philip. We don't know. Was he shocked? Was he startled? Is he going to kiss her? Because we don't know. The chapter ended. Is he going to, in turn, kiss her back? I think it is his first kiss. I'm starting to wonder, is it his first kiss? Maybe he didn't say anything because she was wrong. And I wonder not only what Nick Kendall did not tell her, what did he tell her? Right? Because she's a slick one, this one. She studies everything. She knows how to draw people in and make them feel important. Oh, make sure you thank your wife for the cup of tea that she gave me, my sore throat. I hope she feels better. She knows how to make people feel seen and wanted and appreciated. We still have yet to have, I think on Sunday is the day that the Kendalls come to visit. I've been waiting for Louise to show up again, because Louise, I think, is going to give him, I don't know how experienced Louise is either. I think Louise is going to give him a woman's point of view. So, I'm going back to what he said when he asked her to leave. Please leave. My mother died before I can remember. And I've never seen a woman cry, but you've seen a woman be upset. You've seen a woman be hurt. And that's Louise. So that's an oversight there. You know what it feels to hurt someone when he's acting like the spoiled little child that he thinks he is or was. And he's picking things out on, poor Louise there. What do you think? I'm dying to know where the next chapter is going to go. I've been having the time to read this every day. I know chapter 11, I just looked on my Kindle to see. Let me see. We have 1, 5, 6. The chapters are running about 10 to 12 pages, which I do like about du Maurier. I get a lot of chapters in her book, but they're very short. This one is more like 15 pages. So I'm wondering, is chapter 11 going to pick up where we left off with, Philip at the foot of the stairway as she just, you know, she kissed him. She said that. He said nothing. And then she turned to walk up the steps. And I'm thinking in my mind the shadow that was cast on the wall, because he seems to have a different feeling about her when she is seen larger than she is, when she is sitting upon the horse, when she is standing on the stairs. He seems to have a different opinion of her. He seems to see something kinder and more graceful in her. It's kind of strange. Maybe that's something to explore there. When he seems smaller than, and even when, you know, that scene where they were sitting in the boudoir and she had him sit on this little tiny little stool. I mean, you're the master of the house. Well, you're not really the master, because the master is the male version to mistress, but mistress means control and authority, but master means a young boy. So you are now the owner of this estate. You couldn't have called for one of the servants to bring you in a proper chair. He just went and sat on a stool. And she does talk to him in a way that he is a child. And maybe that was her way of getting back at him, for being this child that owned so much of Ambrose's heart. But she says she didn't think of him that way the moment she saw him walk into the room. And I can only imagine what this cougar thought, seeing a young man in the door frame of her door, of her boudoir, who looks so much like Ambrose. I did highlight something on this page about how Signor Rinaldi was shocked when he saw Ambrose, when he saw Philip. And the shock comes from him looking so much like Ambrose. He could have been Ambrose's son. He most certainly could have been. So I don't know. I'm going down this rabbit hole. The story is starting to come a little together, because we're still in limbo. We really don't know. Like, this is a woman that was married young because her family had no money, and she married a count who we know that she said died in a duel. Would a count really partake in a duel? I don't know. I think that they appoint people to say, you're going to be in a duel and fight for my wife's honor. And why was the duel? I'm saying wife's honor. But, and now she's being honest in saying that she's had relationships that were emotional shipwrecks. Okay. So she's had other relationships past her husband until Ambrose comes into the picture. And she doesn't know why, why this man with this smile and this tenderness, but this strength fell for her. But she's got a lot of experience in other men. And you don't just look upon those experiences as being bad. They've also taught you something. And whether you learn the lesson or you learn how to behave like they do, I just think that she's totally taking advantage of this young boy. Absolutely. The kiss just, I think if you have any doubt of who she is, why would you want, I'm trying to stick myself in that position. I'm trying to think of myself on this staircase, being the widow of the previous owner of this estate who I am now visiting, the young boy who he raised from babyhood. I don't think Ambrose would have been terribly happy with her, knowing that she did something like that. And standing on that staircase and wanting to lean over and kiss him on the cheek, knowing that that's his first kiss, and take that from him, that affection, that emotional response that you would have. I think anyone that's ever been kissed for the first time, whether you both decided to kiss for the first time, or whether someone just, abruptly like, oh, I'm gonna kiss her, and like, oh, and then you're like kind of startled, like, oh my God, he just kissed me, or she just kissed me. Um, oh my God, I don't know why she didn't tie that up. I don't know why. Okay, I'm going to look at the first line of chapter 11. No, we start chapter 11 with, we always carried out a strict routine upon a Sunday. Breakfast was later at 9 o'clock, and at 10:15 the carriage came to take Ambrose and me to church. That's the first line. So chapter 11, I believe, is going to start on a Sunday. And I don't know, is this going to I think that he was being honest in the conversation that he had with her. And I think that he said it. I'm going to tell her everything. I'm not going to leave nothing to rot in my mind. So he told her everything. And I think that he believes that she told him honestly about Ambrose. And I think with that, you could lay everything. Everything's been laid down. We were honest with each other. We have an understanding of each other now. And is this going to endear him more? Is this going to endear her more to him? Where he starts to open up a little bit more, because you're not the woman that I thought you were. So maybe this will, maybe he'll start confessing some more things. I also think not only does du Maurier have a way of creating tension, but the openings of her books always stay with you. So far, I've read 2, and in Rebecca, our narrator is female. In this one, it's male. And she's dreaming of Manderley again. And that sticks with you, that one of the most famous lines in literature. So in this book, we have the old man hanging for days from a tree. Who could forget that? And I think it's a foreshadowing to something that's going to unveil itself in this book. I keep thinking of Ambrose saying, "She is finally done for me, Rachel, my torment." And again, I think she's so knowledgeable when it comes to plants. I was hoping that when he went to the villa that there would have been some reference to some, but that would have been too obvious. And maybe she did really hate him. Maybe she really did hate him for loving Philip so much. Maybe her jealousy did turn to rage, because she said, oh, he would read to me excerpts from your letters, but never show them to me. And I don't think that if she wanted to get her hands on those letters, being when he was ill and all, I wouldn't think for a minute that she did not read those letters. She read those letters. That's why she knows so much. She read those letters. And I'm telling you, Ambrose has got a diary, I think. I think, but she read those letters. That's why she knows how vulnerable Philip is, and disappointed when he's not coming home, when he writes that he's come. Oh, we're going to stay. We're on our honeymoon. We're going to stay. I think she had the natural honeymoon period when you fall in love and everything, you're floating on a cloud and everything else. And they did have a physical honeymoon where they got away from the villa and they got away from Florence and how poor everyone is. Yeah. And then she came back to the villa and everything changed. Anyway, I keep going on and on and on. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you like this chapter. Was it unsettling to you also? And I will see you for chapter 11. Keep creating that world you want to live in. Bye.